Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank with the action. With the vital speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
As we proceed to give you what you need, you are now rocking with the best. Harlem's finest, Harlem's kings. My man Kevin Chiles, Melvin Combs' son. They trying to say that fly niggas and hustlers is extinct. So we having something to disprove that.
Play, but I mean, I played. I mean, my brother, like I said, my brother was a really, really good player. But then, I mean, he didn't kind of finish through with it, and that's a whole different part of my story. I don't know if you know who my brother is or not. Kevin Chiles.
Can you repeat that again?
My brother is Kevin Chiles.
You now transition and you choose Columbia. It's great for you, but how is it for your family? Like, to go to such a prestigious school, to be able to be a student athlete, it's almost like destined for success as a Columbia graduate. Now you got basketball to add to it.
Well, I mean, people that know me, and my story is a lot more than just basketball. I mean, and I don't even know if you know this. You know, my brother is probably one of the biggest drug dealers in the Northeast.
I mean,
I'm just saying. So let's go back to the question.
How you going to say that to me?
I'm just saying.
I didn't see the BMW.
I'm saying it for the people. I'm saying it for the people, man.
Emporium on 125th.
I'm saying it for the people, man. The podcast.
Oh, okay. I was there.
Well, so
I remember when y'all came to Kids Play with the aviators on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next part.
Left a pump Dawn Diva. Get my Kevin Chiles on, call me Dawn Diva.
Like Kevin Chiles.
Used to run the big cab before he got knocked.
Best Harlem niggas, 80s to lately. Think of Full Wop, Nicky Barnes and AZ. First Rich Zip, Kevin Chiles and DB and that.
You won't see Kevin Lounge, but Kevin Chiles. Kev Chiles had the BM parked in the ball store. Think I'm Kev Chiles the way your balls do.
What prompted me to feel the need to get out and hustle, I guess what people right now looking back on, at the time I didn't realize, but I was poor. I remember going to the corner store and asking the guy being sent by my mother, asking the guy would he give us a quarter pound of cheese and half a carton of eggs and milk and stuff like that. My mother would pay him when he got paid. I was scalping tickets, I lived up in the Bronx, not far from Yankee Stadium, so what I would do is, with whatever money I had, if it was $50, I would buy tickets, then I would flip them, say a fat $10 bag, you would take that, and you would roll joints, and out of $10, you would be able to make $20. So I was selling weed, and then from weed, I ended up start selling cocaine. I started out with 8 balls and 3.5 grams, 7 grams to 14 grams to ultimately an ounce to eighth to 2/8, 2/8 to half a key to a key. And then before it was all said and done, I was responsible for selling over 4 tons of narcotics, and I was considered a drug kingpin.
As I understand the story, she was in the Bronx visiting one of her friends, and she was abducted by 3 guys with guns, and they took her to the roof and they threatened to kill her, and those kind of things, and told her for her to take them somewhere to get some money. They wanted money or whatever. Ultimately, she ended up bringing them to my mother's house.
Barbara Chiles and Rita Falk died from their gunshot wounds.
Mrs. Chiles had absolutely nothing to do with this.
Yo, we back. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb. We on our way to NYC with it. The Bronx, to be exact. The High Bridge section. But we gonna get a lot of money uptown. And to be honest, this story is bigger than New York City. Now, the person that we're going to be covering today is a person that I had the ability to cover in the past, and I stated then that I had a lot of respect for them on so many levels because they really embody the game. And not only that, the time that they came up was right in the time when I started paying attention to the streets. So it's almost like I seen the whole thing. If I could compare it to something, it's almost like somebody seeing Kobe Bryant get drafted and also having the ability to see Kobe Bryant retire. in the midst of him playing in the game, it's like his life was in front of the camera. So it's almost the same way. And the reasons that I have a lot of respect for him, because he's almost like a throwback gangster. And he's not one of the older ones, like Nicky Barnes or like Frank Lucas or something like that. But you would think he was, because the morals and the principles that he stood on and stand on. And that pretty much makes his story very unique when we talking about New York hustlers and people coming up, because it's a lot of things you can reference. We can talk about his trial. You could talk about the situation that happened with his family, and you could talk about how early he got in the game. And I always respected the fact that he always pushed the culture forward, even with the Don Diva. He started a record company when he was in the game. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And he also owned a sneaker store on one of the most iconic blocks in the United States. I always feel like it's almost impossible to tell somebody's story in a span of 10 to 15 minutes, especially somebody like this and some of the people that we cover. But I'm going to try to do my best to break down some of the important facts, some of the things that you guys might not know. Now, by all accounts, Kev Chiles was a hustler at an early age. In numerous interviews, he would talk about how he didn't live far from Yankee Stadium, so he would get money and he would scalp tickets. People that don't know what scalping tickets is, it's like people almost selling tickets before you get to the stand where you actually buy the ticket at. And I don't know if you have these. It was very, very prevalent in New York when I was coming up. I only been to a few Yankee games, but you will always see that shit. And he would pretty much use the money that he got from scalping tickets to get in the marijuana business. Now, I can't really say get into the marijuana business because it was almost on a little scale, but at that time, the weed was, I guess you would get more for your money. So he was able to break it down. And on top of that, people were smoking joints. So you was able to get a bag and make however many joints, and you would sell those joints probably to the people that couldn't afford to get a bag. I'm not sure how that worked out, but he was able to transition that hustle. And that was pretty much the start. Based on all my research, he was pretty much a go-getter from an early age. He learned a lot of the game from his uncle, or not really his uncle, someone that was married to his mom's sister. And with that close relationship, he was probably a little bit hesitant trying to put Kev in the game. Even though Kev had the enthusiasm and wanted to get out there, he would eventually link up with somebody associated with that gentleman. Nappy Red is a person that's deceased now and was a good friend of his. And that really kind of started to take off. And he would rise in the streets almost where I would remember hearing the name. But before I could even know about hearing the name, I would never forget. I was at my grandmother's house in Coney Island. It was a Friday, and they will always have America's Most Wanted plastered on the screen. So on this particular Friday, America's Most Wanted kind of went into a case of a drug dealer that had a beef or a rivalry with another drug dealer. And said drug dealer paid for a hit and a plot that was supposedly had the drug dealer's girlfriend killed. So on the screen, they reenact and they show two girls being accosted by two kidnappers. They would go on to portray the two men demanding money from the younger girls, and one of the younger girls insists that she knows where they can find money. The show would go on, and it would continue to show the two young girls taking them to a woman's house. It depicted the woman coming home from work at a bank, and pretty much they knocking on the door and they bum rushing their way pretty much into this lady's house, demanding money. When they find out that it's no money there, they lay all three of the females on the floor, put pillows over their head, and they proceed to execute them. One of the victims would go on and survive that attack, and it would be the female who was the initial target. Watching it at the time, it was really hard to digest, especially at that young age. but it always stuck with me. And as I got older, I would hear more stories about Kevin Chiles, about how he was bigger in the streets, or how they had this store on 125th Street called Boss Imperium that had a red customized BMW parked right in front of the store. And a lot of the interviews he does, he talk about how he frequent a lot of these historical spots like the S&S Club or Willie Burger. He would kind of toss that out, and he was running in the streets right around the time Preacher, Alpo, Rich, we all know AZ, and some people might know or if you're familiar with him, you know about the beef that he has between AZ, and I'm going to try to do my best to break that down. So for a long time, it was rumored that Alpo had sent AZ some paperwork from when he was first snatched up by the feds, and that paperwork allegedly contained Kevin Chiles' name. Now, as far as the magnitude or the exact information, that's a mystery. But they said that this paperwork was given to a guy by the name of Chuck or Bourne, better known as Charles Allen Brown. Y'all remember that name because it's very, very important. Now, that paperwork was given to him, and it somehow made its way to Kevin Chiles eventually. Now, that would be the beginning. According to AZ, when he first started doing the Mobb style thing, he was introduced to a guy by the name of Bernard Thomas from somebody from the Sugar Hill Gang. Now, Bernard Thomas, better known as Bishop Bullwinkle, from his viral YouTube video, Held to the No-No, was supposedly helping AZ, getting him accustomed to the music business. Now, AZ would go on to describe a scenario very reminiscent to Paid in Full, to the What's Up With Your Man with the silent treatment, to where Bishop Bullwinkle introduced him to somebody else, and they were trying to initiate a drug deal. AZ said he got a bad feeling from that, and he fell back. He's going to say the next time that he heard about Bernard Thomas, he would bump into Gangsta Lou, and Gangsta Lou said that Bernard Thomas asked him to get a bird for him. He did it, but he was not able to get him that bird. So that situation played out. Some time would pass. He said he would talk to Gangsta Lou, and this was sometime right in around 93, 94, because it was a convention called Jack the Rapper, and Kevin Chiles had took upwards of 100 people down to this convention, and Gangsta Lou is going to be one of those 100 people, and he's going to say that he talked to AZ on a bus, and he's going to say that Bernard Thomas was one of the people that was on there, and it would go even deeper. Kevin Chiles would have a record label called Big Boss Records, and they would go on to release a group called the Uptown Kids, which is, it's just like when I'm telling you it has so many ties. I remember watching the show called Video Music Box, seeing a video that they have called I Got the Skills, and it just so happens that Bernard Thomas and Kevin Chiles are both credited as producers on that record. Now, fast forward to November 1994, and that's when Kevin Chiles, along with 21 co-defendants, including his children's mother, his aunts, his cousins, and a lot of people from his inner circle, was arrested by the feds. One thing I could remember that was very different about this case was they rounded up a lot of individuals, and at the beginning, the entirety of the people that they had in custody refused to testify. Now, one of the people being one of Kevin's childhood friends, a guy by the name of Chris Mack, he had prior convictions and he was facing life. Now, instead of cooperating with the government, which I'm sure he could have did because Kevin Chiles was the big fish, he would go on to sign a 17-year plea agreement rather than a snitch on Kevin Chiles. Another person charged was an accountant that Kevin Chiles had just started doing business with, and he didn't even cooperate. But if y'all don't remember, too long ago, we spoke about a guy named Chuck or Bourne or Charles Allen Brown, who had allegedly got the paperwork from AZ that mentioned Kevin Chiles' name. After months on the run, he would cooperate as soon as he was caught by the government, being the only person out of the 21 co-defendants that did testify against Kevin Chiles, he would go on to serve a long jail sentence. But that wasn't the end of his story because, like I say, he came home. He started Don Diva. He also has a book out called The Crack Era. Y'all going to be able to check that link below. Y'all make sure y'all follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, POP_A_LOT. Y'all let me know what cities we haven't been to, what gangsters we miss, what stories we need to cover, and we right there. And y'all know what it is with me. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb, Mobb, Mobb.